On June 14, 2022, a memo surfaced from the archives of a de-extinction research facility dated a year earlier, detailing an experiment labeled Project Dawn. The memo references a successful genetic reconstruction of a creature, identified only by a code, A11. What stands out is that the memo's timeline conflicts sharply with the official announcement of the project's inception, which was publicly declared in December 2021. The discrepancy raises an immediate question. How could an experiment be deemed successful before the program was publicly acknowledged to exist? Further complicating matters, a transcript of an internal meeting dated March 2021 discusses logistical challenges in housing and containment. This predates the official narrative by nearly 9 months. The implications of such a timeline suggest preparatory actions were undertaken well before any public disclosure. Court filings from a whistleblower lawsuit include testimony about unauthorized shipments of biological material. These shipments supposedly occurred in late 2020, yet there is no record of them in the facility's logs. The absence of documentation raises questions about the scope and scale of these operations. Each piece of evidence suggests a timeline that diverges from the official story, hinting at a deeper, possibly concealed layer of activity. The origins of the de-extinction program are enmeshed in a complex web of political maneuvering, financial stratagems, and institutional collaborations that go beyond the public eye. To understand how such an ambitious initiative could take root, one must first consider the environment that enabled its inception, a landscape where scientific ambition intersects with geopolitical strategy and economic interest. The program's financial underpinnings are as enigmatic as its scientific endeavors. Initial funding traces back to a series of shell corporations, each with ties to multinational biotech firms. These entities, often registered in jurisdictions known for opaque financial practices, provided the necessary capital influx to kickstart the project. The trail of money flows through a labyrinthine network, obscuring the true sources of investment. This deliberate obfuscation suggests an intent to shield stakeholders from scrutiny, raising questions about who stands to benefit from the program's potential successes. Politically, the de-extinction program operates in a gray area of jurisdictional ambiguity. The facility at the center of Project Dawn is strategically situated in an extraterritorial zone, a legal no-man's land where international agreements on biodiversity and genetic experimentation hold little sway. This choice of location is no accident. It allows the program to sidestep regulatory frameworks that would otherwise impose stringent controls on such experiments. The absence of coherent oversight creates a fertile ground for innovation, albeit at the cost of transparency and accountability. Institutionally, the program is a collaborative effort involving a consortium of universities, private research labs, and government agencies. Officially, these entities maintain a posture of plausible deniability, often citing national security or proprietary research as reasons for their lack of public engagement. Internal documents, however, reveal a different story, one of clandestine meetings and covert agreements. These gatherings, often held under the guise of academic conferences, serve as platforms for exchanging sensitive information and aligning strategic objectives. Secrecy mechanisms within the program are meticulously crafted. Access to information is compartmentalized, with researchers bound by non-disclosure agreements that extend beyond their tenure. Digital communication is heavily encrypted, and physical access to key facilities is restricted to a select few. This culture of secrecy is not just a protective measure. It is a fundamental component of the program's architecture, ensuring that only those deemed essential are privy to its inner workings. As the program progresses, the implications of its secretive nature continue to unfold. A newly uncovered memorandum, dated January 2021, hints at international interest in the program's outcomes. It references a high-level meeting involving diplomats and scientists from several countries, discussing potential geopolitical applications of de-extinct species. The document stops short of detailing these applications, leaving much to speculation, but its existence alone underscores the global stakes at play. This interplay of politics, finance, and secrecy weaves a narrative that is both compelling and unsettling. It raises profound questions not only about the ethical dimensions of de-extinction, but also about the power structures that drive such endeavors. The full extent of these dynamics remains shrouded in mystery, leaving a lingering tension between the potential of scientific advancement and the shadows of its clandestine origins. In the shadowy corridors of Project Dawn, control is wielded not through public proclamations, but through the silent levers of power. At the heart of this intricate web are the key actors who orchestrate the program's operations, each controlling a critical aspect of its infrastructure. These individuals and entities operate behind layers of classification and confidentiality, their influence extending far beyond the visible structures of the program. One such entity is a private defense contractor with deep ties to intelligence agencies. This contractor holds the keys to the classified programs that underpin the de-extinction efforts. With a history of managing sensitive projects, they possess the unique capability to navigate the labyrinth of security clearances necessary for such an endeavor. Their involvement provides the program with a shield of legitimacy, allowing it to operate under the guise of national security. Another powerful player is a multinational biotechnology firm that controls the procurement of genetic material. Through a series of strategic acquisitions and exclusive contracts, this firm has secured access to the world's most advanced gene editing technologies. Their proprietary techniques form the backbone of the de-extinction process, making them indispensable to the program's success. Their leverage lies in their ability to dictate terms, ensuring that their interests are prioritized in any collaborative effort. A consortium of legal experts provides the program with a formidable legal shield. These specialists in international law have crafted a framework that exploits jurisdictional loopholes and ambiguities. By doing so, they protect the program from potential legal challenges and regulatory interventions. Their expertise ensures that the program remains insulated from external scrutiny, allowing it to push the boundaries of what is legally permissible. Intelligence channels also play a crucial role in maintaining the program's operational security. A network of former intelligence operatives facilitates the discreet exchange of information and resources. These individuals, with their extensive backgrounds in espionage, are adept at managing the flow of sensitive data. Their involvement ensures that the program remains one step ahead of potential threats, both internal and external. The interplay of these actors is not merely a matter of coordination, it is a dance of power and influence. Each entity, through its control of specific domains, contributes to a complex ecosystem that enables the program to function. Yet, this concentration of power also raises questions about accountability and oversight. Who watches the watchers when the system itself is designed to operate in the shadows? A recently leaked document marked "For Eyes Only" reveals a clandestine meeting between representatives of the program and an unnamed foreign government. The implications of this meeting are profound, suggesting that the program's reach extends beyond national borders. While the specifics of the discussion remain undisclosed, the mere existence of such a dialogue hints at a broader geopolitical strategy at play. This convergence of control and secrecy forms a delicate balance, one that could tip with the slightest provocation. As the program continues to advance, the stakes grow ever higher. The potential for de-extinct species to reshape ecological and political landscapes is immense. Yet, the true extent of this potential remains an open question, shrouded in the very secrecy that enables it to flourish. In the labyrinthine corridors of power, where secrets are currency, a single fracture can illuminate hidden truths. The first documented crack in the de-extinction program emerged not from a deliberate leak or whistleblower's confession, but from an unexpected audit. The government agency responsible for overseeing environmental compliance had initiated a routine examination of ecological impact assessments. Among the stacks of paperwork, an anomalous report surfaced. It detailed not only the expected environmental impacts of reintroducing extinct species, but also hinted at unauthorized field trials. This was the first indication that the program was not merely theoretical, but actively testing its capabilities in undisclosed locations. The audit report, though sanitized for public consumption, contained enough discrepancies to raise eyebrows among the auditors. The language used suggested the presence of species that had no known living counterparts, yet there was no corresponding data on how these trials were conducted or where. This omission was glaring, and for those who knew where to look, it was a breadcrumb leading to a much larger narrative. As the audit findings circulated within the agency, tensions began to rise. Internal emails, later revealed through a Freedom of Information Act request, showed a growing rift between the Environmental Agency and the entities controlling the de-extinction program. The agency's scientists demanded more transparency, insisting on the necessity of a comprehensive ecological risk assessment. Their concerns, however, were met with resistance and redirection, as if they were poking at a hornet's nest. This conflict was not just about scientific data. It was a clash of ideologies. On one side stood those who believed in the sanctity of natural ecosystems, and on the other, the architects of a new biological frontier. The debate over ethical boundaries intensified, with the agency's scientists questioning the moral implications of playing God with nature. Yet, their voices were largely drowned out by the powerful interests vested in the program's success. Documents obtained from the audit also hinted at financial irregularities. Unexplained budget allocations and shadowy funding streams suggested that the program's financial backers were as enigmatic as its objectives. This revelation added another layer of complexity, implying that the program's roots ran deeper than previously understood, entangling it in a web of clandestine financial dealings. As these findings began to surface, the agency found itself at a crossroads. Should it push for a thorough investigation, risking political and professional fallout, or acquiesce to the pressures exerted by more powerful entities? The decision was not simple, as the implications of either path could reverberate far beyond the confines of bureaucratic halls. The audit, in its unassuming beginnings, had unwittingly opened a Pandora's box. It revealed the precarious balance between scientific ambition and ethical responsibility. The true extent of what lay beneath was still shrouded in mystery, but it was clear that the program's ambitions were more audacious and its operations more entrenched than anyone had anticipated. To understand how the de-extinction program managed to operate largely out of public view, we must delve into the intricate mechanics of concealment employed by those behind it. The system was as much about what was hidden as what was selectively revealed. At the heart of this concealment was a tiered classification system meticulously designed to compartmentalize information. Documents were categorized under various security levels, ensuring that only a handful of individuals had access to the full picture. This stratification meant that most involved in the program only saw fragments, making it nearly impossible for them to grasp the entire scope. For those at the lower rungs, the project might have appeared as a benign ecological initiative. Compartmentalization extended beyond just documentation. Personnel were siloed into specialized teams, each tasked with a narrowly defined role. This structure effectively isolated knowledge, preventing cross-pollination of information that could lead to unintended revelations. Each team operated like a cog in a machine, aware of their function, but blind to the machine's purpose. Document routing was another layer of obfuscation. Sensitive reports were shuffled through a convoluted chain of command, often crossing multiple departments and sometimes even different agencies. This labyrinthine process served to dilute responsibility and obscure accountability. By the time a document reached its final destination, it was often so sanitized that it bore little resemblance to its original form. Legal barriers were strategically employed to shield the program from scrutiny. Non-disclosure agreements were standard, binding participants to silence under threat of severe legal repercussions. Additionally, the use of classified patents and proprietary technology claims effectively locked away critical details from public and academic inquiry. These legal instruments were not just protective measures. They were weapons of control. Narrative shaping played a crucial role in managing public perception. Public relations campaigns were crafted to portray the program as a cutting-edge endeavor, focusing on potential ecological benefits and technological marvels. Meanwhile, dissenting voices were marginalized, their concerns dismissed as alarmist or unfounded. By controlling the narrative, the program's architects ensured that any leaks would be met with skepticism. Intimidation, both subtle and overt, was reportedly used to maintain compliance. Whistleblowers, or those who questioned the program's direction, faced professional ostracism or threats to their career prospects. The chilling effect was palpable, creating an environment where silence was the safest course. Budget masking was perhaps the most ingenious aspect of the concealment strategy. Funding was funneled through a network of shell organizations and innocuously named grants, making it nearly impossible to trace the financial trail back to the source. This financial sleight of hand not only hid the true cost, but also masked the identities of those bankrolling the venture. These concealment mechanisms were not merely defensive tactics. They were an integral part of the program's operational ethos. They allowed the de-extinction initiative to push boundaries without immediate consequence. Yet, the very complexity of this system hinted at a vulnerability. Each layer of obfuscation was a potential point of failure, a chink in the armor that, if exposed, could unravel the tightly wound fabric of secrecy. In the dimly lit hearing room, Dr. Elaine Carter, a geneticist formerly associated with the de-extinction program, delivered a stunning disclosure. Under oath, she recounted an incident where her team inadvertently created a hybrid organism, combining genetic material from species that had never coexisted. Her voice trembled as she described the creature's erratic behavior and the subsequent decision to terminate the experiment. This was not a premeditated creation, but a byproduct of fragmented knowledge and isolated teams. The implications of such unintended outcomes were profound, raising questions about the control and oversight of the program. Meanwhile, halfway across the globe, in a remote village in Siberia, local hunter Anatoly Ivanov shared a different kind of encounter. In a recorded interview, he spoke of a creature he had seen just months prior, an animal that matched no known species in the region. His account was met with skepticism by the authorities, but the villagers whispered of government trucks frequently seen in the vicinity, suggesting a clandestine project. Ivanov's story, dismissed as folklore by officials, added a layer of mystery and unease, hinting at the possibility of de-extinct species escaping into the wild. Both testimonies reveal the precarious balance the de-extinction program maintains between scientific ambition and ecological responsibility. Dr. Carter's account highlighted the risks inherent in a heavily compartmentalized system, while Ivanov's experience suggested a potential breach in containment protocols. These narratives, while distinct, converge on the troubling notion that the program's impacts may already be spilling into the broader ecosystem. The risks extend beyond biology. In a leaked internal memo, concerns were raised about biosecurity measures. The document, though heavily redacted, mentioned unforeseen variables and external exposure, indicating a level of uncertainty even among the program's architects. If such variables were to materialize, the consequences could be catastrophic, not just for the environment, but for the program's very existence. The testimonies of Dr. Carter and Ivanov underscore an unsettling truth. The program's reach may be greater than its grasp. As more voices emerge, each adds a new dimension to the unfolding narrative. Whether through accidental creation or unintended release, The boundaries between controlled experimentation and ecological disruption appear increasingly blurred. In the background, the machinery of the program continues to hum, its inner workings shrouded in secrecy. Yet, as these first-hand accounts suggest, the facade of control may be more fragile than it seems. Each revelation chips away at the carefully constructed narrative, leaving behind a trail of questions that demand answers. In the shadowy corridors of the de-extinction program, a labyrinth of documentation and data trails awaits discovery. Within this matrix, a series of redacted files offers tantalizing glimpses into the program's undercurrents. These documents, though heavily obscured, contain references to Project Lazarus and Operation Phoenix, coded names that hint at broader initiatives beyond public knowledge. The language within these files is clinical, yet the repeated emphasis on viability assessments and genetic stabilization suggests a focus on refining potentially unstable genetic constructs. Further examination of procurement trails reveals transactions that extend far beyond the typical requisitions for a scientific endeavor. Among these are orders for specialized containment units designed to withstand extreme conditions. The specifications detail reinforced alloys and climate-controlled environments, indicating preparations for housing organisms with unique habitat requirements. These acquisitions point to a scale of operation that belies the program's purported scope, suggesting ambitions that stretch into the realm of the extraordinary. Communication logs obtained through a whistleblower reveal a network of encrypted exchanges between key program officials and external contractors. The language is terse, with frequent references to timelines and containment thresholds. One particular exchange stands out, discussing the integration of exogenous genetic materials and the potential for unexpected phenotypic expressions. This dialogue implies an awareness of risks inherent in their work, yet there is an undercurrent of urgency, as if racing against an unseen deadline. Budget transfers documented in internal accounting records show a pattern of reallocation from environmental conservation projects to more clandestine line items. These transfers are marked by vague descriptors such as anomalous field operations and remote site management, suggesting a redirection of resources towards undisclosed activities. The financial paper trail is meticulously maintained, yet the lack of detail raises questions about the true nature of these expenditures. Flight manifests from a private aviation firm reveal a series of chartered flights to remote locations, including the Siberian wilderness and uninhabited islands in the Pacific. These flights coincide with timelines of reported sightings and unexplained phenomena, suggesting logistical support for field operations that remain officially unacknowledged. The destinations are marked by their isolation, ideal for conducting activities away from prying eyes. In a classified annex referenced in a separate set of documents, there is mention of Phase 2 operations and adaptive release protocols. The language is deliberately oblique, yet the implications are profound. These references hint at a strategic shift, perhaps towards a more active phase of interaction with the environments into which these organisms are introduced. The annex's existence, though not fully disclosed, suggests layers of planning that extend beyond initial experimentation. Physical evidence records, though sparse, include entries for specimen retrieval and containment breach incidents. These records are shrouded in secrecy, with details redacted, but the mere acknowledgement of such events points to challenges in maintaining control over the program's outcomes. The structural integrity of the program, once thought unassailable, appears increasingly vulnerable to unforeseen complications. As these artifacts emerge, they weave a complex tapestry of ambition and oversight. Each document, each trail of data, adds to the growing sense of a program operating at the edges of scientific and ethical boundaries. The structural implications are clear. Beneath the surface lies a network of operations whose full extent remains hidden, yet whose impacts are beginning to ripple outwards, challenging the very fabric of control. The de-extinction program's narrative is riddled with contradictions, and nowhere is this more evident than in the timeline of key project milestones. Official documentation claims the program's inception occurred in early 2015. However, leaked emails from a former project lead suggest that preliminary experiments were underway as far back as 2012. These emails reference initial viability tests on genetic samples, a full 3 years before the program's purported start date. This discrepancy raises questions about the transparency of the project's origins and the true scope of its initial undertakings. Further complicating the timeline is the testimony of a contracted geneticist, whose statements were sealed under a non-disclosure agreement. Yet, a redacted version of their testimony surfaced, indicating that they were involved in fieldwork as early as 2013. This involvement predates the official hiring records by 2 years, suggesting a covert phase of research that was never publicly acknowledged. The geneticist's account speaks of unprecedented breakthroughs and unexpected setbacks, hinting at experiments that may have gone beyond ethical and scientific norms. Additionally, the program's logistical framework presents another layer of contradiction. Official reports outline a clear chain of command and resource allocation. However, internal memos reveal instances where equipment and personnel were rerouted without explanation. One memo describes an incident where a shipment of specialized containment units, destined for an undisclosed location, was redirected mid-transport. The units were reportedly designed for organisms of a size and nature not yet documented, raising questions about what exactly the program was housing. Missing documentation also casts a shadow over the program's integrity. A crucial environmental impact assessment, required by international law, is conspicuously absent from the project's archives. An investigative journalist uncovered a draft version that was never finalized, with notes indicating significant, unresolved ecological concerns. The absence of a complete assessment suggests either oversight or deliberate obfuscation, leaving the environmental implications of the program's activities alarmingly opaque. Perhaps the most striking contradiction lies in the altered statements of key personnel. A series of interviews with a high-ranking official, initially detailing safety protocols and risk management measures, were later retracted and replaced with more sanitized versions. Audio recordings of the original interviews, however, reveal discussions about containment failures and unanticipated genetic mutations. These admissions, later scrubbed from the official record, point to a reality far removed from the controlled image presented to the public. As these contradictions accumulate, they reveal a program beset by internal fractures and external pressures. The misaligned timelines, sealed testimonies, and missing documents all suggest a framework struggling to maintain coherence. What emerges is a portrait of a venture that, despite its ambitions, may be unraveling under the weight of its own complexities. The enduring question remains: how deep do these structural fissures run, and what are the potential consequences if they continue to widen? The strategic implications of the de-extinction program extend far beyond the surface-level contradictions and missing documents. At its core, this initiative embodies a confluence of power dynamics, control mechanisms, and intelligence tradecraft that are as intricate as the genetic codes it seeks to manipulate. The program's covert beginnings and the subsequent obfuscation of its trajectory suggest a deliberate effort to mold the narrative, shielding the true breadth of its activities from scrutiny. This narrative management is not merely about controlling information, it is about orchestrating perception. By selectively releasing data and shaping the discourse, the program's architects can maintain a veneer of legitimacy while pursuing objectives that may diverge significantly from public declarations. The suppression of dissenting testimonies and the alteration of official statements point to an intelligence apparatus adept at crafting stories that serve strategic ends. Beneath the surface, the program's logistical anomalies hint at a sophisticated network of resource reallocation, indicative of clandestine operations. The redirection of containment units and personnel suggests an underlying agenda that prioritizes certain undisclosed objectives over transparency and accountability. This clandestine approach necessitates a level of institutional protection that can only be afforded by entities with considerable influence and reach. The absence of a finalized environmental impact assessment, coupled with unresolved ecological concerns, raises questions about the program's compliance with international regulations. This regulatory oversight, or intentional evasion, offers insights into the power structures that enable such latitude. It suggests a calculated risk assessment, where the potential benefits of de-extinction are weighed against the regulatory and environmental costs, perhaps tipping the scales in favor of progression despite the uncertainties. The altered statements from key personnel reveal a deeper layer of narrative control, where truth becomes a malleable construct. The sanitization of interviews and the suppression of discussions about containment failures indicate a strategic recalibration of the program's public image. This recalibration is not merely reactive, but anticipatory, designed to preemptively address potential criticisms and maintain the program's momentum. In this context, the program's trajectory is not just about scientific ambition, but also about the wielding of influence within a complex matrix of geopolitical and institutional forces. The strategic implications suggest a venture that operates on multiple fronts, navigating the interplay between innovation and regulation, secrecy and revelation, control and chaos. Yet, as this intricate dance continues, one cannot ignore the potential for unintended consequences. The structural fissures within the program, if left unchecked, could lead to destabilizing outcomes that extend beyond the confines of controlled experimentation. The unresolved ecological and ethical questions serve as a pressure point, a reminder that the balance between ambition and oversight is precarious, and the repercussions of miscalculation could reverberate far beyond the program's immediate scope. In the labyrinthine corridors of the de-extinction program, one particular pressure point remains stubbornly unresolved: the existence of sealed files. These files, locked away under layers of bureaucratic and legal protection, hold the potential to alter our understanding of the program's true nature. Their contents, shrouded in secrecy, are believed to contain pivotal details about the program's origins, methodologies, and perhaps, most crucially, its intentions. The files are shielded by a web of classified annexes, rendering them inaccessible to all but a few with the highest clearance. This has fueled speculation and concern among those who question the transparency of the program. Despite numerous requests and mounting public interest, these documents remain beyond reach, protected by a fortress of red tape and national security considerations. This veil of secrecy is not merely a procedural oversight. It is an intentional safeguard, preserving the program's autonomy and shielding it from external scrutiny. Within these sealed files, there may lie evidence of jurisdictional overreach or perhaps even breaches of international accords. The implications of such discoveries could be profound, challenging the legal and ethical foundations upon which the program is built. Yet, without access to these documents, any such assertions remain speculative, leaving a critical gap in our understanding. The reluctance to unseal these files raises questions about what they might reveal. Could they contain information about vanished evidence or unexamined testimony that might paint a different picture of the program's operations? Or do they hold insights into the geopolitical dynamics that have both enabled and constrained its development? The persistent inaccessibility of these files suggests that their contents are deemed too sensitive, too potentially disruptive to be exposed to the light of day. This unresolved pressure point is emblematic of the broader tension between innovation and accountability. The sealed files symbolize a deeper struggle for control over information, a struggle that has defined the de-extinction program's trajectory from its inception. As long as these files remain locked away, the narrative will be incomplete, and the true scope of the program's ambitions will remain obscured. In the end, the existence of these sealed files underscores a fundamental truth. The pursuit of knowledge, particularly at the cutting edge of science and ethics, is inherently fraught with challenges. Yet, it is within these challenges that the potential for understanding, and perhaps resolution, lies. As we conclude our exploration of the de-extinction program, we are reminded that the search for truth is an ongoing journey, one that requires patience, persistence, and an unwavering commitment to uncovering what lies beneath the surface. This concludes the episode. This has been The Conspiracy Files with Paige Carter. Follow the show for new episodes.